You are listening to Packers Talk Radio Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Welcome to Titletown Sound.
Babo? Who's Babo? Oh, Bobbo! That's me. Present. I'm here. Sorry, my secretary didn't write that down right.
I don't think I'd know Spencer Havener if I tripped over it.
You're the worst. You're the worst ever.
Jeremy, you love my sense of humor, right?
Yeah, it's my favorite ever.
I think Jermichael Finley could be back next year, Jeremy.
Do you?
I also think Omarius Hines could be back next year.
I hate you so much. I hate you.
We chuck it down the field, we run fast, and we score touchdowns. I have nothing more to add. That's it.
Welcome to Titletown Sound, episode 56, the Ed O'Neill edition. On this week's show, we are going to be discussing the vacations that we all took over the bye week. I went to Australia, Chris went to Mordor, and Jeremy went to the Waupun Minimum Security Prison. He'll be telling us all about that. But first things first, we want to talk a little bit about the Packers. Normally at this point of the show, we would talk about the game that was this past week, but of course there wasn't one, so we're forced to just talk about the Packers, and one of the big stories that has been kind of running around this past week or so is Fat Eddie. Is Eddie Lacy out of shape? We've seen him with the six-pack. Rumor has it that he was just wearing an Incredible Hulk shirt or something like that. I think he might have a green midsection. I don't know, but Jeremy, what is your take on Fat Eddie?
Well, I was having this conversation with my cellmate. Fat Eddie, I think it's just something that Packer fans like to say because they don't know what to say about Eddie Lacy's lack of production. Lacy is heavy, yes, but he's also got a messed up ankle. The skinniest of people will struggle with a messed up ankle, and it has been a problem for him. And the first few weeks of the season, Eddie Lacy looked really good. He looked like he was ready to punish some people. And ever since that ankle injury, he slowed down. And I love to make the fat Eddie jokes. When we put together that Facebook thread, I made Eddie Lacy's picture a cheeseburger because it's hilarious, because he's fat. He's freaking huge. It's not really a six-pack, it's a keg. But who cares? Eddie Lacy, he looked good the first few weeks. I'm confident that he'll be good again when he gets healthy. But the fact of the matter is he's not healthy. That is the problem.
I wonder if his rotund presence is affecting how quickly he's healing. I mean, I think there's something to it. I think the fact that McCarthy even acknowledged that he's heavier this year than he was, I don't know. McCarthy's pretty careful with his words. I said it last week. I think there's some sort of wild conspiracy going on. That's why they started Starks. Maybe they're sending a message. But overall, I think you're right. Lacy is still capable of doing what he did in the beginning of the season. It's not like he put on 30 pounds in the last week and a half. So he can get back to form. I don't know if it's affecting his ankle because he is bigger than he was. But I don't think it's, I don't think they're ready to cut him over his weight or anything. I think during the bye week, we need things to talk about. So the Fat Eddie conspiracy will continue until he breaks off like 120 yards at some point in the near future.
We'll only know that Eddie Lacy's ankle is actually, or fatness, is actually a problem if next season he comes in like 40 pounds lighter. That's the only way we're going to know that it was actually a problem. If in the offseason he drops a bunch of weight, then we'll know that the coaches had an issue with it.
All right. Well, that's all said about Eddie Lacy. Let's talk about LaTroy Guion, the other guy who's been kind of a popular name lately. Chris, are you particularly concerned about LaTroy Guion at this point, or are you only sort of concerned about LaTroy Guion at this point?
I'm pissed off about LaTroy Guion, to be honest. And the reason I am is because, so the story came out, and it was kind of old news. The story was about his domestic violence issues and prior arrests and civil cases. And it detailed stuff that we had, I don't know, there were kind of talks about it, but no one really had the details. And it really gave details about what happened several years ago. I mean, the most disturbing one is that he's accused of punching the mother of his child in the jaw, pushing her to the ground and punching her in the jaw. So this report comes out on the bye week. People question immediately the timing of it and kind of dismiss its validity. I think I'm not judging the journalism. I don't care about the journalism. I'm judging the fact that now we know that LaTroy Guion has been accused in the past of punching the mother of his child in the jaw, knocking her to the ground, that he's paid restitution for violent acts that he's committed in the past, and that, this is something we didn't necessarily know, even if it was all available there. So my point is, and I wrote a piece about this on Titletown Sound Off, that we're owed an explanation. And I say we're owed an explanation because all of us put a lot of effort and a lot of money into supporting the NFL and this team. So that's why I feel like we're kind of owed an explanation. What did the Packers do an investigation before they brought him on? And if they did, because this information should have been available to them, and if they did, why did they decide that what he had done wasn't a big deal? Or if they didn't do an investigation, why the hell not? It's a multi-million-dollar corporation. They should have. So I hear people saying that this is kind of it's no big deal. This is old news. They're just trying to dig up dirt. Well, guess what? That's what they did do. They dug up dirt, and there's actual dirt there to dig up. And then McCarthy calls the piece garbage. Unfortunately, that's exactly what I was afraid would happen, that the organization is not going to give us any sort of explanation. I don't expect them to give us all the answers, but they did an explanation that we did an investigation and we didn't think that the charges were valid because we talked to this person, we talked to that person, whatever, or something, or say, yeah, we knew about it all and we thought, whatever, he's in a position of need, we're going to hire him. But I felt like we should have heard something other than calling the article garbage, because garbage or not, the facts are still what they are. That's what bothers me the most.
I think there's two sides to it. I'm going to try to work my way through my thoughts here that I'm having on the spot. So this is dangerous, but here it goes. There's interesting angles to all of this. So maybe they didn't do an investigation. Maybe they trusted the fact that the NFL said that guy can play football and he's not suspended. He has no problems. Go ahead and sign him. Not that they literally said that to the Packers, but the fact that there was nothing on the radar as far as an NFL suspension goes at the time of signing, maybe they didn't do an investigation, or maybe at the same time they did. But all the teams around the league sign players, regardless of their past, that the league will allow that player to play, as long as that player can play football. And other teams around the league do this. When the Packers do it, we get upset about it. And I'm on your side here. I feel like it is a strange thing that they would sign him without having investigated that. And if they did investigate it, it's strange to me that they would sign him, because maybe we're just naive, but I feel like that's not really the norm for the Green Bay Packers. Or maybe I just want to believe it's not the norm for the Packers. And I think that's what a lot of Packer fans are experiencing here. They want to believe that the Packers don't do those things, but maybe they do. Maybe they're just like every team. Maybe they're just like the Dallas Cowboys and Greg Hardy. Maybe there's no difference, and we just want to believe there is one. So there's a lot of different things going on here. People are experiencing their feelings based on being a fan or, emotionally attaching yourself to something. It's tough to make your decisions on this without a bias as a fan, because you can be upset with the Packers, you can be upset with Michael Cohen, but the truth is those things that happen, those are facts, those are out there. So what do you do with those? That's where everybody's at, I think. Like, what's it going to change today anyways? I don't think the Packers are going to cut him. And so I think a lot of people are feeling that way. Some fans are really stupid and, they make excuses for the guy regardless of what had happened. Those are the people I dislike most. But there's just a lot going on here, feelings-wise, like how fans feel, how the reporters are feeling about the things they're writing, how the team is feeling about the things they're reading. The whole thing is just, it comes down to one point. The NFL is very imperfect, and it has a big issue. They are allowing horrible people, and I don't know LaTroy Guion personally. I just know that he has a record. And young people sometimes make mistakes, and they grow up, and they change. So I don't know who he is today compared to then, but I know this. The NFL allows for horrible people to play in their league regardless of what they've done, as long as it makes them money. Greg Hardy makes them money. LaTroy Guion makes the Packers money. That's the issue.
So the thing I would say is, first of all, if they didn't do an investigation, that's negligent because it's an investment. It's an investment, of a couple $1 million of the reputation of the organization. So they should have. That should be said, and it's not hard. It's not hard, especially with their ties to former law enforcement, to find out this stuff. But second of all, I don't know if LaTroy Guion's a bad dude. I don't know if he even, if he did what he's accused of doing. But what I do know is that the organization, especially McCarthy in that press conference, was so dismissive that's the problem. That's the problem. The problem is that the organizations, the NFL, the teams, when they're dismissive like that, when McCarthy says it's garbage and doesn't address it, he could have addressed it in a sincere manner and explained that either the team knew or the team has found out, and this is what they think about it. But instead, he just says it's garbage and won't continue anymore. What does that mean?
It's crazy. It makes me feel like maybe they did do an investigation and they ignored it, and now that it's out in the light, he'd rather brush it under the table and try to make it so that Packer fans will just let it go and forget about it or whatever. But the thing is, the Packers are a part of the NFL, and the NFL is a twisted league with very low morals. And we want to believe that the Packers are better than that. And I would hope that they would be. But with this LaTroy Guion thing, maybe they're not. Maybe they're not better than that. Maybe they're not better than the Cowboys or anyone else in the league. Which sucks. Just saying.
True enough. I guess on that note, we will move on to our next point. I feel like we're losing like an hour and a half of the show and we don't have a game to talk about. But, well, thankfully, though, the bye week is coming to an end. We will have Packers football again very soon. And lo and behold, it's the Denver Broncos that are laying in wait for Green Bay. It's going to be a heck of a battle from the looks of things. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos offense first. The future Hall of Famer Peyton Manning still at quarterback. Not looking like a regular Peyton Manning offense, though. Broncos still 6-0. They're doing enough on offense, but they've got some weapons. C.J. Anderson, who's massively disappointing me in fantasy, but of course I drafted him, so naturally he's going to be disappointing. That's how it works. Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders on the outside. So I guess, Jeremy, I'll throw it to you first. Your thoughts on the Broncos offense. Are you particularly concerned about them right now if you're the Packers defense?
I think you have to be, regardless of where Manning's arm is, because Peyton Manning is a smart guy, right? And we watch guys survive in the league. Ryan Fitzpatrick survive without a cannon of an arm, but they have the brain that it takes to figure out how to win. Peyton Manning has that. Now, yeah, he's looked kind of crazy, ridiculous with that noodle arm this season at points, but he can figure out ways to win. And so Peyton Manning is still a dangerous man. He's not going to go deep on you, but they'll figure out ways to move the football. So, yeah, this is an offense to be concerned about. It's probably one of the best offenses they've faced this year, It's got to be top 2. So yeah, there's definitely something to be concerned about here. The defense has been hot and cold, but they are winning in that one stat category that matters, points against. They are doing well there, and if they can continue that, great. But the Broncos offense, they can figure out how to move the ball, and they can figure out how to score.
I completely disagree. In no way does this offense concern me. We're going to talk about the other side of the ball. Okay. But they have zero running game. They can't get anything going running the ball. Manning is a shell of his former self. He obviously hung on at least a year too long. And this offense, I don't think should concern Packers fans at all. That doesn't mean that this game's a lock, but I would say that I don't fear Peyton Manning at all. I don't fear a running game running over the Packers because they haven't been able to get a running game going all year long. I just don't think. I think it's been smoke and mirrors. I think this team is 7-0 on smoke and mirrors, and for some reason, if you guys, you watch highlights and the Packers beat the Chargers in a rough game where they gave up 500 yards passing. And I saw an article the next day: are the Packers the worst undefeated team? Some national outlet. And then the Broncos beat the Browns in overtime, and it's a gritty, character-building win. It's crap. The Broncos, the offense is a shell of what it was, and I'm not worried about the offense. Like I said, if we don't talk about the other side of the ball, I'm a little concerned. But the offense, I don't think it should worry us at all.
Yeah, I guess that defense comes into play for me when I'm thinking about the offense, because that defense can hold a team down. And that offense can figure out how to score enough points to be in a game and win it. So, yeah, that offense, you do have to be concerned about that offense because they can score. They can score enough for what their defense can do. It's all relative. The team is so good on the defensive side of the ball. That offense can figure out ways to score. So, yeah, I think it's something to be nervous about.
The offense might score 17
on the other
points.
Side of the ball. On the other side of the ball, I don't know that the Packers are going to do much better than the Broncos offense this week because their defense is very, very, very good against the pass and the run. It's the best defense in the league. It's going to be a tough game for the Packers, and I think that the Broncos offense is good enough to keep up and possibly pull off a win.
All right, Denver's defense, touch on that a little bit more. I mean, they got some pretty solid names: Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware. Some pretty solid threats. They're getting a lot of sacks every week. This Denver defense. What more? How surprised are we sitting here, getting ready for this game against the Broncos and saying that Denver is a team that's led by their defense? I mean, it's just unfathomable. But I guess, Chris, how concerned are you on a scale of, let's say, of all time? Rodgers going up against a very good defense. Would you say this is like potentially the toughest defense that he's had to go against? Would you say it's maybe a top 5 toughest defense? How would you rank the Broncos D?
For all time?
For Aaron Rodgers, what Aaron Rodgers has faced in the NFL.
Wow. No, I mean he's played all those Seattle defenses, and San Francisco at the time they were strong. And this is a good defense, a very good defense. And they get to the quarterback. They lead the league in quarterback sacks, and in second place with 3 sacks behind are the Packers. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when the schedule came out at the beginning of the year and I saw this Sunday night game, I thought, oh, good, look, a battle of the 2 best defense. I was really ready for that. Not at all. We all thought there was going to be an offensive battle, maybe a shootout, and it is. It's actually 2 teams right now, and I think the Packers will not remain this way. They will change as their team develops as the year goes on. But it's 2 teams that are led by their defenses with sputtering offenses. I don't think the Packers have been sputtering as much as the Broncos have, but they've had some difficulties, or at least things that are kind of out of character, out of the norm for the Packers. But yeah, this defense is strong, and it's one of the strongest. It may be the strongest they faced this year. But you beat this defense with a possession game and keeping them on the field, and then having your defense, get off the field as well to tire them out. And I think that's something the Packers can do. So, yeah, I think it's a good defense. I don't want to put it in those great categories. I don't think they've been tested enough. It's still early to really elevate them to anything all-time that Rodgers has faced.
Yeah, you can't really say at this point because the season, even though both teams are 6 games into their season, you just can't really make that call right now because their season literally just started. I mean, it feels that way, right? So Let's see how they're faring at the end of the season. Let's see how the Broncos defense is doing in the playoffs and those kinds of things. So right now you have to be concerned with the defense. That they're putting up good sack numbers. They're only 1 point behind the Packers in points against. These two teams, very strangely, are carbon copies of each other, but for different reasons. I mean, Peyton Manning can't throw the football. Aaron Rodgers can, but nobody's getting open. So offensively, they're not the Packers and the Broncos. They're just not performing very well. Defensively, both teams have been very good. They've been at the top of the charts in a lot of ways, while the Broncos in more ways than the Packers. But these teams are very similar, and that's strange to me. I'm pretty sure that's strange to every Packer fan who's sitting here waiting for the offense to start playing football, which it's going to, and that's the difference between the two teams. The Packers might not start this week with a high-flying offense or scoring a ton of points, but come playoff time, this offense is going to look a lot different than it has so far this season. And the Broncos offense, it won't. It's going to stay what it's been because Peyton Manning's not getting better. His arm isn't getting stronger. That offense doesn't have the health issues in their wide receiver group, their running back group, the way that the Packers do. That offense isn't getting better. The Packers offense, it should get better. I'm not going to say that it will for sure, but it should get better by playoff time. So, man, that defense, though, there is a lot to be concerned about. That pass rush, my biggest thing and my biggest goal or the number one thing for me going into this game is that Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn the football over. That's got to be number one. No interceptions. That defense, it's going to be looking for it. When you have a Peyton Manning who's not playing the way he used to, you need to do some things on defense to score or get the ball into scoring position for the offense, and they're going to be looking for it, which, I mean, every team's always looking for the turnovers, but this defense comes very hard with their pass rush, and they're going to have opportunities for it, and I'm believing that Aaron Rodgers can be the Aaron Rodgers we know and protect the football, and I think that's the biggest key to them winning this football game. No turnovers. Do not give the ball to that defense at all.
I think if Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over, I think the Packers win. I don't think there's any question. And that one turnover may be the difference. It may be a close game, but I really think, if they don't turn the ball over, or if Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over, they may lose a fumble, but no interceptions, and I think this game is the Packers.
All right. On that note, let's continue the prognosticating and go to Fantasy Pick'em, where we're going to pick one Packer and one Bronco to play a little bit of a fantasy football type game. Of course, no game last week. 2 weeks ago, we had the Packers and Chargers, and we had maybe the closest fantasy pick'em we have had to date. Jeremy's team of Aaron Rodgers and Danny Woodhead finished third. Very, very close behind. Very, very close behind Chris's team, which had James Jones and Keenan Allen, which, according to the scoring system we have, was 0.22 points behind my team of Randall Cobb and Phillip Rivers. And you might recall that I really didn't want to take Phillip Rivers, but doggone it, I knew I had to. So,
by the way, while you were delivering that, Phillip Rivers had another child. No, but he actually literally had another child today, in case you guys didn't see.
Yay. Oh my gosh. How many's he got? Like 1 million?
He's got 8 right now.
Wow. Start a TV show. That's the popular thing to do. Have 2 more children, start a TV show.
Ooh. Then the question is what network. But anyways, we'll discuss that later. So for Fantasy Pick'em this week, Jeremy gets to pick first, Chris gets to pick second, and by the way, of 6 weeks so far, Chris, you finished second 4 times out of 6.
Nice. I am mediocrity illustrated.
Yes, you are.
All right.
Dude, we should. That'll be your next weekly article. And then I'll pick on the turn. So, Jeremy, the question for you, my friend, is: are you going to pick a Denver Bronco because you're just not sure there's more than one Bronco worth picking, or are you going to go with the obvious pick of Aaron Rodgers?
I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. So, there you have it.
All right. Fine analysis there. Chris.
I am going to go Emmanuel Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders. I like that pick. From a neutral perspective, considering I'm picking third, I'm not crazy about it because that's kind of the guy I wanted. Well, if I've got to pick, I have to pick my Packer first, of course. And tough though it may be, I'm going to go with Randall Cobb, who continually does not perform when I pick him, but, say la vie. And then Bronco, I have to take Peyton Manning simply because he's a quarterback and he's on the board, and his name is not Nick Foles. Chris, your second pick.
And I am excited because this is the week of redemption. I shall choose Fat Eddie.
Fat Eddie. Jeremy, you got to pick a Bronco. Who are you going with?
I know. I'll pick Demaryius Thomas.
Demaryius Thomas. All righty. See how those picks pan out for us this week. Next week we'll find out. Time to move on to True False, where last time we played this game was a couple weeks ago again, and all 5 answers ended up being false. Fun fact. First time I think that's actually happened. Jeremy went 3-2. I went 2-3. And Chris, I believe you weren't here, but you threw in your true false answers after the podcast. I think you said you didn't even check the questions, but you just threw true false at us and some random others.
You're not supposed to tell people that.
You still did better than me. So Chris is leading the way right now with 16 correct answers. Jeremy's got 12. I've got 10, because apparently this is the game that I suck at now. So I got 5 true-false questions for you guys. Are you ready to go?
Sure.
Yep.
I'm getting loosened up over here. All right. True-false number 1. The Green Bay Packers accumulate at least 340 yards of total offense. Green Bay is 11th in yards offensively at 364.2. Denver's defense number 1 against yards with 281.3 allowed. So in theory, if you go in between, it's about 320. But the statement is Green Bay Packers accumulate at least 340 yards of total offense. Jeremy, true or false?
This would have been much more difficult if you had gone with 320. Just saying. I'm going to say false. 340 is a hefty number, and not that the Packers can't hit 300, not that they can't hit 320, but 340 is a stretch. I don't think so.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, I guess it is possible, obviously, especially with this offense getting back a couple of players. But I agree with Jeremy against this defense. I'm going to go with false.
All right. I'm going to say true. I'll be the optimist this week. True false number 2. By the way, I forgot to tell you guys to get your paper and pencil out because there's going to be a lot of numbers this week. True false number 2. Denver's offense records at least 240 passing yards. The numbers are really close here between Green Bay's defense, which is 12th against the pass, and Denver's offense, which is 18th in passing. But the numbers are pretty similar here. Packers allow 236.5. The Broncos pass for about 240.8. So extremely close numbers here. Keep in mind the Packers number may be a little bit inflated because they allowed over 500 passing yards against San Diego. So numbers a little closer than they might be otherwise. So, Jeremy, you get to pick first again. Denver's offense records at least 240 passing yards.
I'm gonna say true. I think they will. I want to say false. I think they will, though. The Packers do give up yards, and they don't seem to have a problem with it as long as teams aren't getting in the end zone. So Peyton Manning will have his opportunity to move the ball up and down the field. The question is, can he get it into the end zone? I don't know. So I'll say true.
I'm going to say false. I am really off the Manning train, and I think this is the game. After this game, people are talking about it now, but after this game, it'll be the game where people say, wow, he's just done. So I will say false.
All right. I am going to say true. No particular reason, just leaning that way. True, false, number 3. The Packers defense sacks Peyton Manning at least 3 times. Packers defense averaging just under 4 sacks per game. Peyton Manning has only been sacked 12 times this year, so averaging 2 sacks per game. So, Jeremy, true, false, the Packers defense sacks Peyton Manning at least 3 times.
I'm going to say true.
That's good, because that's what I had already.
The Packers defense is they can bring the pass rush, and especially with B.J. Rogers coming back this week, it's going to help an awful lot. And the thing is, with the Broncos, if they're averaging 2, they give up 2 a game. Have they played teams with a premier pass rush up until this point? I mean, they've played the Chiefs and the Vikings. I'd say those are the 2 best teams with a pass rush that they've played against. The Packers, they bring it. Okay, the blitz is on this year. The defense has been very aggressive. I think they hit that number.
So the number was 3. I will say true. I think part of it is because Manning can't go down the field as much as he used to. It gives him a chance to really get some pressure and not worry about the big play as much. And plus, I think anyway, with a quarterback like Manning, they're just going to bring it anyway, especially with the way the defensive line is playing. He ain't getting out of it once they get through the offensive line. He's not moving. So I think 3. I think it's going to be more than 3, but I don't have to say that for this answer, so I'll just say true, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Packers defense having at least 3 sacks. At least 3. I mean, I got 2 words for you, Peyton. Psycho package. Something. Have fun with that. True, false, number 4. Broncos defense records at least 3 sacks. Broncos have 26 sacks through 6 weeks of action, which, if my numbers are correct, that's more than 4 sacks per week on average. The Packers allow less than 2 sacks per game. And I looked at the Broncos' schedule. The only team that I thought really had a noteworthy passing attack, and maybe not as much so far this season, was Detroit. And they did have 4 sacks against them. Everybody else was like Cleveland, Kansas City, just, not a lot to be threatened by. So, Jeremy, true, false? The Broncos defense records at least 3 sacks.
I'm going to say true again. This game is going to go back and forth on the defenses. And I think both defenses bring their pass rush and they bring it hot and heavy. And I think both defenses get to the quarterback. The difference is Peyton Manning will crumple under pressure. So the Packers might get 3 sacks on the Broncos, but they're going to get close to Peyton Manning multiple times, and it's going to affect plays. With Aaron Rodgers, it doesn't necessarily affect the play. Also, they might bring pressure all game long and sack him 3 times, but for the rest of those times that they're bringing the pressure, Rodgers is so good with his legs. He's so quick to roll out of the pocket. I think they get 3. I don't know that it has the same effect that the Packers do.
I think that's a really good point that you could see. Let's say they only sack Manning 2 times. They may pressure him into 3 interceptions, that don't end up in the sack category, but that the pressures really disrupt him. So so the question was 3 sacks for the Broncos. I'm going to say true as well, but I think you've got a great point that the impact of those sacks, as long as health is not an issue, won't be the same.
All right, I will disagree with you guys and go false on that one. I'll trust that Aaron will be fleet of foot and will hopefully be in the whole game, knock wood. And that takes us to true-false number 5. The Denver Broncos defense commits at least 2 offsides and or encroachment penalties. A note from the Denver Post here, 11 times this season Rodgers has benefited from an offsides call. The Broncos have 8 offsides penalties this year. I don't have a number for encroachment penalties, but we're combining offsides and encroachment here. The Broncos defense commits at least 2 offsides and or encroachment penalties. Jeremy, true or false?
At least 2. I'm going to say false. It's in their house. It's more of a challenge for the away offense than it is for the home defense. As far as snap counts go, the crowd in Denver is always very loud, and it's going to be tough on the Packers offense. So, false.
Yeah, I'm going to say false as well. If it was at home, that might be a different answer, but on the road, you can't even hear the snap counts to be drawn off sometimes, so I don't think it's going to be 2.
All right, I'm going to say true. The Broncos apparently not committing an exceptionally high number of penalties, but they are apparently rather ill-timed penalties. And I can see the Broncos defense getting a little bit jumpy, especially if they get frustrated at some point. So I'll go true on that one. So yeah, we're disagreeing this week. That's good. That's what I wanted. Alrighty. You know me.
This is why you're losing.
That's also a fair point. All right. Prediction time. Green Bay Packers, Denver Broncos. After a bye week, hopefully the Packers are healed up. Jeremy, I'm just going to throw it to you. Who's going to win? Give us a score.
Well, I think the Packers are going to lose one of their next 2. And you can hate me if you want, but I believe that. I think they will. The next 2 teams are, the Broncos and the Panthers, both undefeated thus far, both really good. The Panthers are really good on defense, as well as the Broncos. I'm going to say they're going to lose in Denver. I think they lose this week. I think it's by a very close margin. I don't think the score is all that high. I'm going to put it at 21-24 Denver Broncos.
So I agree with you that they're going to lose one of the next 2, probably, but I don't think it's this one. I don't buy the Broncos. I buy that the Panthers are for real. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, but I think we're going to frustrate that Denver offense. And the Packers win 20-10.
20-10. I've been hearing that a lot lately. That it's probably going to be a low-scoring kind of a game, which is exactly.
Which means it'll be 42-35.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the reason I want to go with a higher score here. Part of the reason, though, that I am going to go with a higher score here is because I believe somewhere in my soul that this will be the coming out party 2.0 of Jeff Janis. I'm going Green Bay 37 points.
No. Oh, gosh.
Woo!
Jeff Janis. Yep, that happened. All right. After all the yelling I did on the last podcast, that's the way you're going. You don't listen when I talk. You don't listen when I talk, and you don't listen when I yell. There's something wrong with you.
I try not to listen to you ever, dude.
Yeah, you really don't ever listen to me. All right, so that's the podcast. We thought it'd be a quick one today, and here we are pressing on an hour. So good job, us. We did it. Guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. We have another podcast that we're launching this week, Pack to the Future. It's Brian, Dusty, and Brian's got a new guy. His name is Jordan. You're going to want to listen to those 3 guys. We'll be posting their podcast right before it should actually come out, I would say, a Friday, which should be tomorrow for us. Who knows when you're listening. But look for that. Pack to the Future will be on our iTunes. It will also be on the website. You can listen to that. We have our breakdown coming out tomorrow morning. Player to Player is currently being worked on, so that will come out before the game. And we, again, have more content for you to read and listen to and all kinds of good things like that. Bobbo.
Yo.
How you doing? Got something to say?
I'm still looking for a Jeff Janis jersey online. Looking for the best order of his to drink. Haven't found that yet. But for the time being, I will simply remind listeners to not forget to pet their cat.
All right. Chris, I never put you on the spot at the end of the podcast, and I think it's time. Chris, do you have anything to say to end the podcast?
Am I supposed to have a catchphrase?
No, you're not. You can do whatever you want. You can, if you could fly to Milwaukee very quickly and punch Bobbo in the face, that works for me.
Good luck.
All right. I'm assuming.
All right.
I'm assuming. Am I supposed to have a catchphrase? Is Chris's catchphrase? That's
I guess
how that's
so, because you did put me on the spot. All I would say is sleep well, Prince Janis.
Oh God, I hate you both so much sometimes. I'm gonna. If the audio of this podcast comes out well, I will be cutting that clip. Sleep well, Prince Janis will be played over and over. All right, thanks for listening to the podcast. Pay attention to the website. We always got more content. Feel free to drop in on the forum. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys there. And we'll bring you another podcast next week. Thanks for listening.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.